Well, hey there, sweet peas. Did you miss me? I'm your host, James Avramenko, back from summer holiday and ready to dive into season 7 of Friendless. I have missed doing this show so much. I've missed you, my little sweet peas. And I am just so excited to be back. I cannot wait to share with you everything I've got in store for the new season. Today, we're going to do a little update on everything that's been going on, how the summer went, and how the rest of this season is going to play out. So buckle up, sweet peas. Lean back, get comfy, set your volume at a reasonable level, and enjoy my sneak peek of season 7 here on Friendless. It's the best time of year. You know it. I know it. It's Virgo season, baby. Happy Virgo season to all who celebrate. Anybody who thinks this isn't the best time of year, well, you're probably a Gemini, so, kick rocks, kid. I just celebrated my 37th birthday a couple weeks ago, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really, clear-eyed, fresh-minded. My body's recharged. I've spent the summer just resting, recharging, recouping, and I'm just like chomping at the bit, ready to go. I'm also just about to hit 11 months sober, and I could not be prouder, could not be more excited about it. Sometimes I don't know, I can't fucking believe it. I remember this time last year just being in such depths of depression and substance abuse and thinking that that was just, that was my reality. That was how it was always going to be. And I was always going to be trapped in where I was. And a year removed from it, I feel like I'm in a new body. I feel like that past is dead and done and gone. And I could not be more excited about the future that I'm building towards right now. Summer in general is a funny season for me because I gotta admit, I'm not the biggest fan in general. I'm not somebody who does well in big heat. And so I have been just like counting down the days to end of August, September, when it finally starts to cool off and cardigan season starts. Ooh, yeah, get some linens on you. Ooh, baby, you're going to do just fine. Already, I see in Vancouver all the tiny little hats are coming out. Everybody loves their tiny little hats. And it's the best time of the year. This summer, I really spent just focusing on recharging, spending, quality time with people that I love, but realistically, and most importantly, spending time with myself and really trying to reflect on where I've been and where it is I want to go next. And the funny thing that happens is, you get into these gears of like self improvement, and what I've come to really realize is that more often than not, those periods end up turning into sort of a process of like self acceptance or recognizing that it's like everything that I want to be, I already am. I'm already good enough. I'm already doing really good. And, sometimes I can grasp that and sometimes I forget it a little bit. And I really spent the summer really cementing that core self belief and that core self love in myself. And I'm ready to kind of put the stress test to it, right? I always talk in therapy about like, therapy is sort of like the theory, you're so almost like in class and you're sort of theorizing about what could happen. But then you put it out in the world and you have to test it against actual interactions and actual reality. And I'm really ready to dive into that and really test myself and see where I really am versus where I sort of feel like I am. Because, like, as satisfied as I am with myself and as satisfied as I continue to be, I know that there are still parts of my life and parts of my work that I have yet to accomplish. I still have goals, I still have things I want to do, I still have places I want to go. And so navigating the it's almost like threading the needle between sort of like feeling that self-satisfaction already while also being desirous of something else, and not letting it overtake me, but also letting it kind of guide me through, right? It's this idea of like, I often see these sort of like utopian ideals of like, if we didn't have money, we'd have no jobs and everybody would be fine. But it's like, you know, work is a fundamental element of life. Like nature, animals in nature work, right? They're not all just kind of laying around. They still have to survive. They still have to go out and do things, and you can't just be completely like static or docile, right? You still have to go and stimulate yourself, and you still have to go pursue things, and that's really what my kind of aim is that it's like I'm not looking to stress myself out. I'm not looking to overburden myself, but I am still continuing to find the next challenge. And such a deep element to that has been just once again circling back to this idea of like cementing that self-acceptance because, this year has been a motherfucker. The last couple of years have been a motherfucker. God, the last decade has been a motherfucker. Like I've just it feels like I've just been on such a goddamn roller coaster, and there's just been so many road bumps and so many impediments that I've been navigating that I'm really ready to put them down and move on. This year, the vast majority of it, I've been an absolute mess. I was in such a state of just like perpetual stress and anxiety, and I was trying so hard to hold so many elements of this past life that what I needed to do was just bury and be done with, but I was trying to hold on to them and keep them active, and it was doing so much emotional and psychic damage. And realistically, this show was playing a part in it because I was being monitored and like I was being kind of like surveilled, and what I was putting out was being used to perpetuate these attacks. And so I needed to pull away from it. I needed to put a wall up, and I needed to relearn my boundaries, and I needed to reassert my boundaries from this past life. So I pulled back from everything. I pulled back from the podcast, I pulled back from posting online, I pulled back from my writing, and I just really recentered how I perceive myself and what matters to me, what are my values, what are my aspirations, who am I? And that's fucking scary, man. And it's hard, and it's like it's intimidating. But I feel like it's not that I'm ready because I don't think, at least in my experience, I'm never ready for anything. But I still want to do stuff. So I have to kind of start before I'm ready. And I'm at that stage now where I have enough on the plate that I can sort of fill in the gaps as I go. And this show obviously plays such a major factor in that. And so, I've spent this summer really reflecting on what is it that I want this show to be about, and what is it that I want to be sharing with the world through this show. I've come to be so grateful for this platform and for this outlet and for the opportunities, to speak to the people who I do, to share their stories, to share my own experience and my own stories. And I've realized that it's still, even that was feeling a little stagnant for me. It might be my ADHD, it might be something else, I don't know. But I continue to experiment with the formatting and the content of the show, and I keep on just trying to refine it and recognizing that it's never going to be finished. It's always going to change around, but I'm ready for sort of a new phase or a new iteration of that. So I've kind of come up with a little bit of like a multi-pronged perspective on how that's going to kind of materialize. And I think what so much of it boils down to are these, the central questions that I have been asking on the show. What does it mean to be a friend? What does it mean to be in community? Um, and I've recognized that for all the years I've been asking this question, I've never actually truly taken the time to answer that question for myself. Nor have I ever taken the time to share what I feel about those questions with you, the listener. So, a good chunk of this upcoming season, I'm going to be spending really diving into those questions from a personal perspective. I'd mentioned at the end of the last season that I have this goal of, or this sort of idea in my head of kind of doing half interview, half solo episodes for the upcoming season. And what I'd like to do is basically take these topics, whether it's friendship, community, connection, or deeper, self mental health topics, lived experience topics, things like that, ADHD, autism, borderline, all these things. And I'd like to do a more sort of I guess the word is deep dive into them and really, research the topics, flesh them out into sort of longer form stories, and weave those with my own lived experiences. I think often about this book I read earlier this year called Unmasking Autism, and how it talks about how when they were first sort of identifying the condition, it was all observed behavior, right? The doctors were watching autistic boys, which already was skewing the data, but they were basing the diagnosis only on what they were looking at, and it took decades for people on the spectrum to get into places of privilege or power to be able to vocalize their own lived experience. And that's when we finally started sort of opening up our perception of what neurodivergence is, what the spectrum is, and we realized how wrong these observations were because we were finally getting the lived experiences to sort of color in these diagnoses. And of course, like, I'm not coming from a clinical perspective. I'm not a professional. I'm not a trained professional. A friend of mine once described Friendless as like an ongoing freelance sociological study, and I really like that, and I want to lean into that. I may not have the clinical training, but I do have the lived experiences behind it, and I also have a very deep rooted curiosity, not to be right, but to find out what we could know more about these topics. So that's, I think, how the solo episodes are going to start playing out is, find a topic, deep dive, infuse the sort of the lived experiences, the personal anecdotes, and really try to open up the conversation around these topics. The internet has this really beautiful and strange opportunity to open up new lines of dialogue and new lines of conversation. But they also run the risk of dropping into very black and white, unnuanced conversation because, they're compressed. And I think that's what's beautiful about a podcast is that I don't have to boil it down to a 15-second TikTok or something like that, right? Like I can actually give these topics room to breathe and really expand on them and really explore them. And of course, still leave room to be completely off base and wrong. But you know, it's with the best intentions here. And then, of course, the other side is going to be the continuation of the interview series. I already have a couple guests recorded in the can, and they're incredible. And this season, I'm going to be much more targeted with the guests. I want to be bringing on people with expertise or experience in really specific areas of life, and really get to the bottom of how they can shed some light onto some of the issues that are really plaguing me and plaguing a lot of the people in my life. I've been thinking a lot about where does this show fit in the sort of grand tapestry in society, because shit's not great out there right now. To put it really pithily, I don't know. Blithely, is that the word? I don't know. But it's like the reality is that there are genocides happening in this world. There is climate crisis. There's whatever the fuck we're calling politics these days. There is a lot of reason to be upset and to be afraid and to be angry. And there is just so much chaos in our day-to-day lives. And I feel like we're being sucked into it. We're glued to our screens, and we're just in these constant maelstroms of panic and anxiety. And while I don't by any means want to be like, and let's just ignore that for a bit, but it's more like I want to create a space where we can set that aside for a moment and just breathe, and find a little peace and recognize, that we can't ignore it. We have to do our part and we have to participate. And at the same time, too, it is okay to recharge, and it is okay to take a moment of peace and to take care of ourselves, right? Like if I've learned anything, one of the biggest lessons of this year has been that you cannot help anyone if you are not first helping yourself. And that's not in what's the word, like a selfish sense. What I mean is that it's like you have to take care of yourself. You can't do any good for anyone else if you're not doing good to yourself first. So if you're burnt out, if you're overexerted, if you have nothing left to give, then what good could you possibly do? And I really want to celebrate that. And I want to create a space where we are allowed to recharge together, and we are allowed to find that peace and tranquility and connection, right? And that leads into the new question that I'm adding into this season. On top of these continued questions of friendship and community and connection, I'm also trying to dive deeper into this question of hope and what gives us hope, and what is it that we hold on to that keeps us going, because there is so much darkness in the world, and there is so much difficulty, and it does feel at times to be completely hopeless. um and I want to come back to this idea of holding on to something worthwhile. And what is it, no matter how big or small, that we hold on to create hope in our lives? I've seen this explosion in the discourse around this idea of sort of like loser culture and this idea of like my personality is now just like rotting in bed and kind of waiting to die. And look, I personally have participated very much in that kind of behavior. I've spent a lot of this year in bed staring at my ceiling, wondering when the fuck sweet oblivion was going to come wrap me up, right? But I just personally, I don't find that mentality helpful anymore. And I'm not here to tell you if it's good or bad, healthy or unhealthy. I'm in a place where I'm not willing to participate as actively in that as much as I have before. And that comes with no judgment because the fact of the matter is, I think a lot of this conversation is coming out of, burnout and out of depleted energy and depleted capacity. And something that I've continued to work on very, very mindfully with myself is recognizing that, my ADHD, my autism, my borderline, these are things that directly create disabilities in my capacity and in my energy levels. And so, right now I'm feeling energized and I'm feeling good and I'm feeling really charged up. And I know that that won't last because I do not have the capacity that our society demands we have in order to satiate the content mill or the other demands of 9 to 5 work and Monday to Friday and on and on and on and on. So it's about a balance. It's okay to rest. It's okay to slow down, and at the same time too, we do still have to. Or I want to keep moving, and I want to keep pushing at the rate that my body is able to. And I don't have the full answers for it yet, but I am asking those questions and I'm exploring those questions, and those are deep themes that are going to be woven into the upcoming season. I keep coming back to this idea of kindness and softness. And this phrase keeps on playing in my head about staying soft is the hardest thing we can do, you know? And I think that is a central sort of philosophy behind this coming season is this idea of how do we stay soft in the face of so much hardness. And I don't have that answer yet, but I am really excited to find out what answers do come from those questions. So yeah, in synopsis of that, that's the plan. Back and forth of solo episodes with interview episodes. I'm relaunching this Substack soon. Again, in honoring my capacity, it is not going to be a weekly thing. It's going to be much more of kind of there's going to be bi-weekly updates with like a monthly long form, and there is going to be some extra goodies that I'm throwing in there. I am trying to make it worth the paid subscribers while, so I'm going to be offering some behind the scenes stuff, some exclusive interviews, things like that. And I'm just really excited to get creating again. Not necessarily be forcing myself to be onto some kind of treadmill, but to just be getting out there, being a part of the conversation, and sharing the stuff that I'm creating because I'm finally at a place where I have a new surge of excitement and creativity, and I feel so much more rooted in my body and my nervous system and my brain. And with the sobriety and with the regulation and just like with everything that I've been processing through, I'm feeling more myself than I have in years, and I'm excited to share that with you. So get pumped, sweet peas. The first official episode is going to be launching shortly, in about 2 weeks, with a returning guest, the one and only poet Magnifico. Uh, I don't know if that's a real word. Jazz Popdopoulos. They have a brand new book out called I Feel That Way Too, which is incredible. It's gorgeous. It is devastating. You have to get a copy. The link to that is going to be in the show notes. And they're actually having a book launch in Vancouver on the 12th of September. And I am writing a review for the book, which is going to be up the Substack. And they graciously came back on the show to discuss the writing of the book, the ideas that they were having behind it, and some of their process. So that's going to kick off the season in 2 weeks, and then we're going to just kind of launch in from there and see where we go. But I think that's going to do it for me today. I just really wanted to pop in, say hello, see how you're doing, let you know I'm doing good, and the show is going to be back so soon and better than ever. I'm just so excited to be. I kind of can't believe I'm at the 7th season of this fucking thing. It's incredible. I'm so friggin' excited to be back. I love this show. I love you, and I just can't wait to get things rolling again. So mark your calendars. September 10th is the official launch of season 7 of Friendless. Get excited. It's going to be an absolute blast. In the meantime, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, anything at all, do not hesitate to contact me. You can email me, friendlesspod@gmail.com, or you can follow me at friendlesspod on TikTok and Instagram. Send me a message. I love to hear from you. So please, this is a part of the new season that I really want to promote. Is I want to build a much deeper connection of communication with the listeners. I want you to feel like you are part of this more than just sort of passive listeners. So reach out, make your voice heard, share your experience. We're going to find lots more ways to have you kind of share the spotlight and just really build this community one interview at a time. So I hope I'll catch you back here on September 10th for the season premiere. But hey, I'm not going to worry about that right now, and neither should you, because that is then and this is now. So for now, I'll just say I hope you had a wonderful summer. I hope you have the best Virgo season possible, and I hope you remember I fucking love you, babies. All right. Fun and safety, sweeties.